Hi, me again. As promised, I am going to give you a part 3 to the Ashokan Farewell. I know it's been a while, but I'm doing it now. I'm going to give you some variations on the melody. I'm going to show you the chord chart for this tune and give you a crash course on how to play a chord chart and play chords. And then I'm going to give you a couple ideas for how to start this tune and how to end it. Okay, so let's start with the variations on the melody. There's a lot of different elements you can vary with the melody. You can add notes, you can subtract notes, you can change the rhythm, you can change the bow patterns, you can change the register, a lot of things you can do. I'm going to cover just some rhythmic variation. That's easy to do. I'm going to show you what walking eighth notes are, roughly, and a way to find a harmony line that often works in folk music. Okay, so start with the rhythmic variation. For example, this traditionally is played with straight eighth notes. Okay, what if you added a little bit of the Scottish snap or a dotted 16th note rhythm? That would sound like this. Now, I wouldn't do it in all these places, but it's really cool if you throw it in here and there. Or do you hear how I'm adding some Scottish snaps? That's the real fast one. There's such thing as doing it too much, so just save it like you would add salt to a dish. Unless you're me, I dump salt on my food. And then on the quarter notes, those could stand to have a little bit of rhythmic variation. See what I'm talking about? So that's a really simple way to add some variety to your waltzes. Simple rhythmic variation. Okay, now what are walking eighth notes? Vaguely speaking, they're just adding some rhythmic, even eighth note pitches to a long note. Okay, so that first long note is worth 3 eighth notes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the second one is worth 4 long notes. So you could do 3 walking eighth notes on the first note and 4 on the second note, on the second long note. And you don't always have to fill the note up completely. You can add and subtract at will. If you run out of notes to play, don't play solid walking eighth notes. Let me just show you a rough example of some walking eighth notes. something like that. I would do it differently if I did it over again. I liked some of what I did, I didn't like some of what I did, but as you practice that idea, you'll get better and better at predicting what notes are going to sound good and how many notes you have to fill up a note, a long note. Okay, that is an advanced technique. If you're just beginning, I wouldn't pressure myself to do that right off the bat, except on a really long note here and there. You could start working on walking eighth notes. The idea of parallel thirds or parallel sixths, what does that mean? A lot of times in folk music, you can find a harmony line just by mirroring the melody exactly a third below or a third above, sometimes a sixth below or a sixth above. And the reason for that is that folk music is based largely on triads, a tonic, a third, and a dominant. And that means that your third is often going to be a harmony note with the melody. It doesn't always work, but it works more often than not. And the reason sixths work is because a third turned upside down, when it's inverted, it becomes a sixth. So depending on what register you're in, if you don't know how to shift, I mean, if you know how to shift, you can do parallel thirds or parallel sixths, doesn't matter. But if you're trying to stay in first position, sometimes you have to say, oh, a sixth above does not work, so I'm going to go a third below the melody note, because that'll keep me in first position, and then I won't have to try to shift. Does that make sense? So, for instance, if I were to play parallel thirds to this scale, then I would start a third above it. I started on open D, so a third above it would be F sharp. And that would form a perfect harmony with my D major scale. I'll attempt to sing along with my harmony. Okay. Did you see how that works? So it's the same with folk music melodies. If you can just figure out if it's a third above or a third below or a sixth above or a sixth below, and then just kind of mirror the melody, then you've got a built-in harmony line. And that's what Jay Bucky did on his arrangement for the Ashokan Farewell. He'll let you download the sheet music for free at jbucky.com. Of course, Ashokan Farewell is by Jay Unger, but this arrangement is by Jay Bucky, and he gives it away for free. And I will teach you his harmony part in a later video, because it'll make this video too long. And it's based largely on a third above the melody. So your melody starts, and his harmony starts. Okay, now the pickup notes are screwy. They're not parallel thirds. Jay he knows his theory and his harmony well enough. He knew that parallel thirds wouldn't work there. But the downbeat, that's your downbeat of the melody. And Jay Bucky has his harmony up here. Those are all parallel thirds. Okay, and like I said, I'll teach you the harmony in a next video, which is going to be right after this one. I won't wait months to release it. Okay, all right, let's move along to chords. When I'm first teaching students how to read a chord chart, I like to teach them emergency position. We are lucky as fiddle and mandolin players. We're tuned in fifths. And that also happens to work with 99% of the folk chords we're going to come across. Fifths. They have a tonic, a third, and a fifth. So if you play your open strings, you've got the tonic and the fifth. Okay, so here's the trick. If you're reading a chord chart and you see a D chord, all you do is find a D and play that with the string exactly above it. So that's a D chord. If you see an E chord, find an E. Here's an E right here. And then lay your first finger down so it covers both strings. We call that barring. And play E and B. That forms an E chord. And it works for major or minor chords because we're leaving out the third, and the third is the note that determines whether it's major or minor. So you've got this little generic chord that'll work very easily. Okay, and there's a lot of fancy chords like a D/F sharp. I'm not even going to address those. For the most part, just read the first note you see, the first note of the chord symbol, and use that as your emergency fingering guide. So if you wanted to play a G chord, then you'd find your G string and play a string above it. A C chord, find your lowest C. The lowest notes work best because it's bassier. Find your low C and lay that third finger down. B, find a B and lay it down. Okay, now yeah, I admit it doesn't make the best chord voicing. It doesn't. You're skipping all over the place, but it allows you to participate in jams when you don't know the tune. It allows you to fake your way along until you learn better voicings, and that comes with time. Okay, so I'm going to bring up the chord chart right there on the screen for you, and each slanted slash, that's a new bar line. Okay, so we've got, as you can see, we've got one bar of D, the next bar is a D chord, next bar is a G chord, next bar is an E minor, and you can ignore the E minor, just play emergency E. Okay, this is a waltz, so there's 3 beats per bar. 1, 2, 3, next bar, 3, next bar, 3. Okay, and you can play pa-pas. That's kind of advanced. What I'm doing is I'm playing the bottom string alone, and then I'm on my pa-pas, I'm playing both strings together. And it's great because it kind of lets you focus on finding the bottom note first, then you just bar across the string. Makes it kind of easy. The bowing I'm using is down, up, up, down, up, up. That works really well for pa-pas. Okay, now another way to play backup on a waltz is just to do drones. Drones are beautiful on a waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I think for beginners, that's slightly easier. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate. I'm just going to play drones. 1 bow per bar. It helps you to keep track of where you are on the chord chart, so your eye can follow along, and your bow change cues you to go next to the next bar. Let's try it. Okay, I don't want to make this video too long. Normally I would go through it once with you, and then we'd try it with the melody. It'd make this too long, so we're going to try it right now. We'll both play back up together and you'll hear the melody in the background. Okay? Listen for the melody pickups. The melody is going to go yada, and then we play. But I will show you each of the chords in the chord chart just to kind of prepare you. Okay? Play D major. The next bar is D major. Next chord is G. Okay, next is E. find your E on the D string. Okay, skip the D chord, go to the B chord. It's B minor. Find your B. Go to C. It's third finger. And A. You can ignore the 7. Totally ignore it. And then we go to a D again, and a D, and a G, and an E. So we've covered all the chords in this chord chart. Let's do it. Listen for the pickups. See how easily that can work? All right, so that's enough on the chord chart. That was a real fast crash course, but I want to mention how to start the tune and how to end it. There's lots of choices you have for hoedowns, jigs, waltzes. One of my favorite ways, two of my favorite ways to start a waltz is the same way that I just told you that you could play the backup. Drones and pa-pas. Okay, generally you'll give 2 bars like this. For pa-pas, and then the melody would come in. So that's pa-pas, or you can do 2 bars of drones. 2, 3, 1, 2. So there's 2 really good ways to count off and to start a waltz. Now for the ending, for this tune, I wouldn't do a fancy ending. I would just do a little bit of a slowdown and hold the high note. Let me show you. You've got this little arpeggio. Hold that high note so everyone knows, ah, this is the end. And I would save that arpeggio going up for the very last time. All the other times I would just do. But on the final time through, something like that, okay? So, although there are fancier endings that you can do, I wouldn't do them on this tune, and so I'm not going to show them in this video. Alright, that's long enough information for Ashokan. I'm going to quickly do another video to show you the harmony part for this tune in parallel thirds, and that'll give you a really good start on Ashokan Farewell. I'll see you in the next video.